capital budget requests, and the first department is the Public Works Department. We have Warren Connor with us. Warren, you want to go over Public Works with us?
Sure. Hello again, everybody.
Hello, Warren.
I think I'm following the order that you have it in your books.
Okay.
First item would be the equipment replacement reserve. As described in your content, what I've done here is requested a reserve fund to build so that when we have a need to purchase equipment or replace equipment that needs an upgrade, we have a fund available to us. Sometimes we have opportunities, even if it's a rental piece of equipment, to buy it at a reduced price, but if we don't have some kind of funds to work with to capitalize on the timing of the event, we can't make a commitment to it, and we lose out on some good deals. In the narrative breakdown that I provided with you, we do have a request for a portable air compressor to be purchased within this budget year, and that would basically serve the needs of Parks and Public Works. We blow out irrigation, we sandblast on vehicles and things like that, and currently we're using the mechanics or rent one, and so rather than use that, we'd like to have our own. And the sign retro reflectivity upgrades, it's a mandate, and I've incorporated a request to get going with some of the sign upgrades and purchase possibly a retro reflectometer so we can check the integrity of the signage, and that's a federal mandate. Those are street signs?
All traffic signs, and the street signs are done. Those we've already upgraded. These are all traffic signs around town. It's not every single sign, but it's the one that would give you an advance warning of a situation, curve in the road, speed limit signs, anything where you'd need some kind of warning. Does anybody have any questions pertaining to the equipment? Next item would be the truck replacement reserve. This year we're requesting funds to replace another plowed dump truck, and the pricing is based on the previous truck that we have being built right now, that we should be getting delivery on it hopefully this month. And future breakdown, you see that I'm alternating between a larger and a smaller vehicle. Does anybody have any questions pertaining to that?
How many plow trucks do we have?
There's 9 full-size trucks that are committed to drivers. We like to try to keep an operational truck as a backup, just in case something goes down. If it can't be a short-term repair by the mechanics, at least that driver can go back into his route without using a pickup. Does every one of those trucks have a route, or there's 9 yes, routes?
they're all assigned routes.
And then you have small trucks too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have a question about how this is divided out here. When would you take delivery? I mean, this is for FY14?
Well, the funding request would be
Right.
for next year, but by the time we don't put in, we start our research, but a lot of things are not available until after July 1, because a lot of what we do purchase is off of the state bid contract awards. And by the time we implement that, we're going into the tail end or almost the next budget year before we're committing those funds.
So this is a reserve for, that will be taken out of FY14, but you won't take the...
Well, hopefully we can make the initiative come July 1 to do we'll start our research if there's anything available. If we can't make a commitment, like if the state doesn't have a contract that runs during that fiscal year that we can capitalize on, and usually we don't have to wait until the new contract comes out, but we'll make a commitment based on what is available on that contract.
I was just wondering why it's divided into 3 every other versus
Well, usually
years or
not-
over 6 years, or you know how.
Yeah, it's every other year
Yeah.
because we are in need of small and large vehicle upgrades.
Okay, so the small vehicle will.
And if you see
Right.
on the line on the breakdown,
Right.
I've given the ages of the vehicles that tentatively that would be replaced.
Right. Okay.
So we're getting our money's worth with 19, 20, 21-year-old
right.
trucks?
Well, most towns actually use about a 10 to 12 year threshold. That would be the idealistic goal. It doesn't make sense to take a truck out of commission, but usually what happens is the truck manufacturers, parts are no longer available. Obviously the elements dictate too how badly degraded a truck may be, and we sandblast, we paint, we do maintenance to the fleet, but I've got a good photo library if anybody wants to see it, or you can check with our mechanics that sometimes they're fabricating things that the manufacturer can no longer supply. Bodies deteriorate, and if the body's gone but the truck is still good, you have to buy a body. And sometimes the cost of a body, by the time it's said and done with the mounting and everything else, you're putting 50% of the truck costs in there. We do what we can in any mode, and that extends the life to get us to where we are right now. And if I look at other municipalities, we're stretching it. We're pushing it out. It's just the nature of our business. We're not replacing anything too soon. Let's put it that way. Any other questions?
Well, we're also blessed with two very fine mechanics.
Yep, and we keep them busy.
Yes, you do.
The next thing is the Bridge and Waterways Reserve, and we do have the Merritt Avenue Bridge that's currently under design, but we do have other locations, cross culverts in town and things like that, that there's going to be up and coming maintenance to those. This fund addresses not only the culverts, but anything that maintenance-wise that we may have to do to storm where we have erosion and we have to harden the waterway, or something of other pertinence, and this is where these funds come from. And it's nice to have a reserve, because if you have our cost share, even if we get supplemental funding, we can expend what the 6-year appropriation is just on one project. Any questions about this? And the last is the Road Reserve Fund. I've maintained the request that's similar to last year and carrying that out over our 6-year program. It seems that this system has been working very effectively for us, and I see no reason to change the request, because pricings, at least for now, seem to be remaining static, and unless there's something unusual that comes up like that, I won't make an increase in the request. But there's still a lot of roads out there that need attention. It's always been our goal to focus on the major roads first, and next year and the year after are pretty much the roads that we're going to focus on, to try to get those roads completed so that we can work on more of the secondaries. Any questions about roads?
Great question.
Any other questions?
Any other questions for Warren? Thank you, Warren.
Thank you.
Thanks to your department for the service during the storm. You guys
Great.
worked well with the police and fire. And
Appreciate it. Yes, it was a well-coordinated effort. We think we've collected the last of the brush, and now we'll start processing it for removal.
okay. Take care. Okay. Police has a fairly extensive process. So look, this was Mr. Adelizzi has graced us with his presence. Why don't you come forward, Joe?
You may wish to have the police first. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Just want to run through your projects. I know there's one big one here that I think that's why Todd is with us tonight.
We have essentially items that you've already seen that we have been moving out as a consequence of our being able to get along with what it was we thought we had to do. We do have 2 large items that came up this year, one of which we've known about for a considerable period of time. The other, specifically the town hall roof, where all of a sudden the roof started shedding its shingle nails. As a consequence of those nails at the time, this roof was done 19 years ago. Being very smooth-sided, they've literally come up and they've worn holes through the shingles above them. The tabs of the shingles cover, they overlap. Consequently, we're doing 2 sections of the roof right now, 2 significantly large sections, to stop 2 leaks, one into the tax office, which we certainly can't afford to lose, and one into the vault area and the air conditioning equipment upstairs for the fresh air intake system in the town hall. What we decided to do, we had a number of alternatives. We could just nail over some cheap shingle to get us through the winter. After discussions, it was recommended that maybe we ought to consider doing it properly in the first place, that is to say, re-shingle those 2 sections to good specification, which now we'll use as the basis for requesting bid quotations for the remainder of the entire roof, which is going to have to be done. So we'll accomplish 2 things. We'll do those 2 sections, they'll be out of our hair, and we'll stop the leaks for now. The $75,000 hopefully will cover the entire roof plus the 2 sections that we're doing now. The other item, the other significant item on there is, as you'll see, the item for the HVAC system in the library, which we've been trying to control for a good 6 or 7 years, ever since I've been involved in building maintenance anyway. And we've been lucky because we've succeeded in getting away with it up until the last 2 years in particular. And it involves humidity building up in the library facility that we control in this building, for example, with air conditioning. Stephanie had a problem almost immediately after this building was remodeled, and it took us quite a bit of time to modify air exchange and circulating water temperatures and which units should get priority vis-a-vis other units to get it balanced so we could maintain at least a reasonable humidity in Stephanie's vault area and the town clerk's vault area, as those records are so critically important to the town. We haven't had that kind of luck in the library. So Todd and I discussed this today, and I would ask Todd if he wouldn't take a minute to explain to you the ramifications of what will happen if we continue to risk at 2-week period last summer we were at 80% plus humidity. That's not a good level for a library. So
hi everyone. Good evening. So basically what we're talking about for print materials in the library, we really want below 55% humidity, and for older ones like in the Woodbridge room, if we had like a large archive area, we want below 45%. We installed this past year some humidity sensors because we knew that things were really rising, and outdoor temperature is part of that, and that sort of affects us. We had a really humid last year or 2. And we realized that when we were testing, our gauges, we have 3 different ones in our monitoring system now. That we were, as Joe said, we were getting 60, 70, 75%, up to 80%, quite often from spring through late summer. Right now we're in the 40%, but winter time is pretty much we've never had a problem there with humidity. So what that means is eventually we're going to start having large, mold issues, degradation issues of the print materials. Right now, our last numbers crunching, we have $1.86 million worth of items in the building. About 1.5 million of that is print materials. So those are the ones that are susceptible to any humidity fluctuations. We've been aggressive at weeding, so we don't have a lot of books that have been on the shelf for 20, 30, 40 years. That helps. We can kind of keep doing that and kind of piecemealing things. We had several dehumidifiers that we had running 24/7 the last several months that we just took out for the winter season. Things like this are kind of band-aids, but they're not, taking into account kind of the long-term issue of the humidity. So we've had bits and pieces of books that we've lost because of humidity. Some years when it's really bad, we'll have more. Other years we don't particularly have a lot of humidity that year, we might not have any. So that's why we've kind of seen this. But the last year or two in particular has been a very noticeable humidity issue in the building, which is why Joe and I and the departments have been working on it quite a bit. Any questions so far?
Was this an ongoing problem, or is this something that's just come to pass now? I mean, obviously the library's been there for 100 years.
It's been ongoing to a greater or lesser degree, but controllable up until the last 2 years. This year was particularly bad.
Really?
Have you had somebody come in and look at it?
Yes.
And
We've had
we've had Silver Petrocelli's HVAC engineer come in. He's given us a basic list of recommendations, which are included in that number. We're not sure that is the absolute answer to this. Simplistically, what happened was when the system was built, there was no recirculation ability of air. In this room, for example, if you look up at the ceiling, you'll see a register there. And then over there in the corner, you'll see another register. The cold air comes out there, it circulates down through the room, and is drawn back up into the inlet register. And as the warm air with humidity goes through the cold coil, the moisture condensates out and is drained out with drains out of the building. We don't have that there. We have some air handlers up on the second floor, but they vent into the entire attic space for the return. They're not direct back into those coils. In addition to that, there's a huge, this is a large box that's probably 8 feet square with a very, very large blower in the basement that is supposed to dehumidify outside air that's brought into the building to handle the mandated fresh air intake that all public buildings are faced with. In other words, we have to supply, I think it's 120 cubic feet of air per minute per occupant of outside air. What that does, when you got 90-degree humidity, you're bringing in 90-degree humidity, and that coil just can't take it out. It's not big enough. It never was. So we're actually, while we're trying on the one hand to get rid of the humidity, we're actually introducing it by virtue of bringing in the fresh air that we're mandated to bring in, only because there's no circulation from the second floor or the first floor back down into the basement so that we could recycle it and maybe slow down the outside airflow. It's a complicated issue, and what we've done, thank God it's winter, we've had one engineer look at it, and what we intend to do, or at least it's under discussion right now by Todd, Tony, and myself, to put together a request for qualification for people to come in there and to answer your question, Andy, to get some more answers other than the one that we have, and hopefully get this price down, because $250,000 just to get the moisture out of the air is a lot of money.
It's early on somewhat still early on in the process, and
yes,
our objective is to, once we have some more definitive answers to present this information, have the engineer speak to the group, both groups, about more definitively what the problems are and what the solutions are. But we just wanted to give you a heads up that this is in fact an issue that we're working on.
And definitively, as Tony was saying, and I can't predict the materials when, you know, we're going to have a large problem. You know, it's going to be a year or two, it could be 5 years, I just don't know. It just, you know, I certainly know it can't go on for another 12 or 13 years, but, yeah. So that's kind of where we are now.
So this is basically a placeholder because you don't
Right.
have a solution.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we wanted to at least be aware of the problem.
Any other questions on that? So there are a lot of other small projects. I just had two other questions, Joe. Maintaining senior center, that's pretty self-explanatory. This tank removal, it says here, removal or abandonment. What is abandonment?
We're still able, as I understand it, as of the last research that we did, we're able to empty a tank, empty it sufficiently so as to satisfy the state that the tank is indeed dry and has no oil in it, and we can fill it with sand.
Really?
And close the hole.
Oh.
That's a lot easier than digging a hole that would be required to take out a 5,000 gallon tank, such as we have at the library, or in the case of the center building, a 6,000 gallon tank. The library is not so bad because it's in the middle of the yard. The center building is going to be difficult because it's adjacent to the main driveway that goes in between the library and the center building. So what we're talking about or investigating is what it is precisely we have to do to dig them up, open them up, clean them out, and fill them with sand. And then they are, at that point, abandoned.
Do you have an idea how old they are?
Pardon me?
Do you have any idea how old they are?
They're within the 20 years, both, and they're fiberglass. They're tanks within tanks, so that is not a problem. And we have a 28-year limit on those particular tanks, so we're okay in that regard. But sooner or later, the state is going to say, look, you can't have those in the ground like that anymore. You're going to have to take them out. And you can't just empty them and leave them empty, because if the water table comes up sufficiently, they'll actually launch themselves out of the ground.
And that's proposed to be done not this coming year, but the year following, is that right?
Yes.
The only other question I have is on the animal control building. We are, obviously, we're using it for Bethany and for, we are responsible for that building entirely?
We are, yep.
Okay. Because there's a couple of projects that are listed for that. Where is it on?
But you can pass on the cost.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure,
that's what I'm
part of the
saying.
fee,
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely.
One of those is an electrical problem. With regards to the service, the entry service that comes into the building, where the wires come from the telephone pole across the yard and into the building, it's not anything at all that Terry Gilbertson would allow us to do today. It's there, and Terry's not complaining that we have to remove it right away, but it's on its last legs, and if we lose that service, obviously we're going to be in a hell of a fix. While we were repairing that entry service and the pole that is attached to the building that supports the wires that come over from the telephone pole, which is jury-rigged with guide wires like an old TV antenna to keep it from falling over. We thought at the same time we'd upgrade the service from 100 amps to 200 amps. So then the building would be safe. The roof, we'll let it go to the point where we can no longer patch it, which is what we're doing with a lot of things anymore, as opposed to just saying arbitrarily, well, it's safe to say this year we should replace it. We've been saying that about the boiler in the public works garage. for I don't know how many years. Hopefully we can get a couple more out of it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it just gets older and older, and it's still functioning. So that's what we're doing, because the cost of repairs, while for budgetary reasons it's nice to be able to say to you, we're going to have to spend $20,000 to do this, this, and that this year. If we don't do it this year, we'll have to spend it next year. So let's squeeze as much out of it as we can, and that's what we're doing. And I won't say any more about what the finance director tells us to do, but that has something to do with it too.
Okay, any other questions for Joe on any
I
of these
just have a quick
projects?
question. Yeah. I'm sure you've already explored this, but there's no warranty issue with the repairs being done now on the town hall room?
No, that was a 1-year warranty. We have a material warranty, but the materials don't cover the nailing. That was a workmanship, not even a workmanship issue. It's the nails, the roofing nails now are coated. If any of you are familiar with coated nails, once you drive in a coated nail, you're not going to pull it out. It stays, period. These were just very smooth-sided wire brad type nails that they utilized when they first started using pneumatic air guns to install shingle nails. When you see the roofers up on a roof, you hear boom, 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 boom. They're using those pneumatic hammers, and that's what was first available. And that's what, with our good fortune, we have up on our roof.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Todd.
And next is the police department. Deputy Chief Stewart is with us. I'll see you tomorrow. Okay. There's a big article in the paper the other day about the department is switching to SUVs now, right?
It's Guilford.
Yes, Guilford, I was going to bring that up tonight. I was going to
Dormitories are gone.
get my
Have all
glasses.
those glasses there?
Good evening, everyone. I'm not, oh geez, I'm making a mess out of it. Thank goodness they're cheaters. Yes, Mr. Giglietti, that's what's happening. And we're right at that point. I guess I'll start with vehicles, move on. We have 5 areas. First 4 are pretty straightforward. The 5th area is regarding our building upgrade that I'm going to allow Mr. Humes to give a little bit of a presentation and bring you up to date to where we're at the suggestion of the first selectman to bring him here tonight. But with the vehicles, actually you see an increase in the cost that we had over the past years, and that cost is specifically associated with the phasing out of the Crown Victoria made by Ford, and the anticipation of us going to the Police Interceptor, which is made by Ford. It's made by several other companies too. Chevy comes out with a Caprice that's comparable. Chrysler come out with the Charger, which is comparable. Actually, the Charger is coming out with an all-wheel drive to try to compete with Ford. What we're trying to do is we're trying to stay with Ford. For the most part, we can use all the equipment that's in our present Crown Victorias. With a little bit of modification, we can utilize them in the new vehicles. But over the last several months, I've tried to give the officers an opportunity. We were able to, one of our local dealers, we were able to get a Ford Interceptor sedan as well as the new SUVs. And what the feedback from the officers actually is towards that SUV that Guilford just went to. They're going specifically all to SUVs. There's not really a big cost difference. The last quote that I got from the dealer that we're going to hopefully deal with, base price for the vehicle is $20,578. After all the essentials that you want to put into it that are not related to equipment, just they deal with all-wheel drive upgrades, noise suppression. These are all things that we normally would have gotten on the Crown Victorias. It comes to, for the sedan, it comes to a price of about $30,649, and for the SUV, it comes to in the area of $31,300, which is not a big difference. Those are both all-wheel drive vehicles. Now, one of the reasons the officers like the all-wheel drive utility vehicle over the sedan is obviously there's space in it. It handles just as well as the sedan. In some cases, it handles much better than the sedan. But when you think of Woodbridge, we're first responders. The officers carry an extremely lot of equipment in the car, from the medical gear to anything that they would need. Being a first responder, we keep our long rifles in the back of the car, shotguns, and plus all their equipment. So most of the feedback that I got from them was to go to the utility vehicles, and it looks like that's where we're going to. I'm actually this fiscal year that I wasn't budgeted for. I'm going to try to make it work for 2 new utility vehicles instead of the sedans. But we're still trying to figure things out. It's a big change. Not being able to go with that standard Crown Vic it made it much easier for me just to go out and price them.
Crown Vics are rear wheel, aren't they?
Rear vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rear wheel.
And just after the last snowstorm, it's pretty logical that everybody's gonna start going to these all-wheel drive vehicles. That's why Chrysler's coming. They're trying to compete. One of the issues that we had with the sedan, just so you know, that the officer didn't like, it's very difficult to back up. I own a Taurus right now, or have a Taurus from the department. Probably the most difficult thing I have to do. I mean, it really is it's a headache. Officers recognized it in their survey. They said it's very difficult. The minimal, if we went to the sedan, would be they have the sensors on it. Most of the newer cars, a lot of the SUVs have sensors on it where it gives you that beeping sound. I know that some of the chiefs in the area that have bought the Tauruses have gone as far as putting cameras in them. I mean, Ford does provide that stock camera to go into it, so you can see yourself backing up. That's the difficulty in it. Chrysler actually made the rear window. They had the same problem. Made the rear window 4 inches bigger, so the sight line was a little bit better. But next budget year, hopefully, I'll be able to give you more of a idea of where we're actually going. Like I said, I'm right in the middle of negotiating now prices, but I have to admit that I'm swaying towards that towards the utility vehicle only because of the officers and what they feel they need on the road. And then going into the request for this year's budget, I had to increase each car $3,000 because of that cost. Also associated with, in talking with the finance director, in the past I've always associated that I have a trading value of the old Crown Vics, and it could be between $1,000 and $3,000. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little less, depending on how much mileage is on the car, the condition of the car, and I never put that into my budget. This year it's actually, I just went ahead and just put the $3,000 because I know that Facilities is looking for a car this year. We have a couple of cars that are very high in mileage, but they're in good shape. Actually, one of the cars, it registers I think 118,000, and it's 118,000, but it has it at about I think about 50,000. It got a new engine, so it's significantly less. So that might be something that the Facilities might want. Kind of an idea where we are with cars right now. Because of the weight and because of trying to save a little money and be a little bit of cost savings in the past years, we have 4 cars, 4 patrol vehicles that are over 100,000 miles. It's a little bit of a concern. No complaints by the officers. One of those is the one I mentioned, 118,000, but that has the rebuilt engine. We have one at 112,000. Our DARE officer utilizes that. No significant problems back and forth to Beecher School. That's what he primarily uses it for. That's what he's assigned to. We have 2 other ones that are specifically patrol, one at 107 and one at 104. The 107, 104 will probably do what we've done with the DARE, and we use them for spares. Got to have the spare out there. We'll just put those up in those 2 other previous ones I added. Those would be the ones that replaced the 118 and the 112. One of them Facilities, one of them I'll trade in. Hopefully I'll get enough money to offset some of the other costs. And then the rest of the fleet looks rather good. I think it starts at around 50,000 and works its way down. The other SUV that we have, the Expedition that we bought back in 2003, the SRO still uses it. We still use it for accident investigation. It's full of equipment. It's at 106, but it's not one of those vehicles that we're putting out that the officers are responding to medicals, responding to accidents, emergencies, wherever they have to go in an emergency manner. But that kind of gives you an overview. 9 patrol vehicles, 5 unmarked cars, 1 for chief, lieutenant, deputy chief. We have 2 in ISU, 1 assigned to the sergeant, 1 assigned to the detectives. We have a confiscated vehicle that we utilize at times, brings down the mileage on the ISU car. The ISU car actually has over 100,000 miles too, the one that the detectives use. We have a Dodge pickup that we're looking to get rid of, and then free, we just obtained from the U.S. government, we obtained a Humvee. It's a 2007. It's got 1,600 miles on it. 1,600. It was a home run. It was just something that, through one of the programs that they have, we were able to get it. Did a little wheeling dealing. We got it. We're looking to send it over to Platt Tech to get it. They're gonna. All we have to do is pay for the cost of the materials. They're gonna redo it. We've already had a little bit of work done on it, and it's gonna replace that pickup truck. Because if we hadn't got that, I was actually gonna come this year, and I was gonna be looking to get some type of utility vehicle for the officers. Because even like during the storm, they had to utilize, well, they did utilize the Humvee until it got dark, and then I had to pull it off the road because it doesn't have doesn't have any emergency lights. But that's some of the things that are going on with the vehicles. Any questions about the vehicles?
So you have nine patrol cars and then 5 other cars? 9
patrol vehicles.
Yeah.
It's actually 8 in patrol. We have 1 DWI vehicle that is still designated as a DWI. They do traffic with it and everything like that. Okay. We actually purchased that. It has been replaced, but it was that extra vehicle in the fleet. I think we bought it in 2005 or 6 with a grant. Didn't cost the town any money at all, but we've left that extra vehicle in the fleet. So that's how we went from 8 to 9, and then we have 1 supervisor's vehicle.
So how many officers do you usually have on a shift?
Could be 2 to 5. Right now it probably averages in the 3 to 2. I mean, we're down. I haven't come to ask for any officers yet. Any other questions regarding the vehicles? Computers, pretty straightforward. We are replacing 2 laptops in the cars. Emphasis on that is they were bought back in 2006, 2005, 2006. They're going on 7 years old. These are the computers that the officers actually have in the cars. They're pretty expensive, $5,200 a piece. They're Panasonic Toughbooks. They're meant to get abused. Not that they are, but they are meant to get abused. I think that's why they hold up so well. If we had a standard computer in that car, I just don't see them holding up. I mean, years ago I showed that, what a standard computer looks like after a year of use by the officers. Just in and out. In the foreseeable future, I do see us possibly, and could bring down the price here, is not having computers in the cars, but the officers will have basically an iPad or some type of tablet. They're talking about that now. Some of the important things, regarding those computers is the reason they have to be replaced is just because of the technology. A lot of the older computers, I mean, if you had a 6-year-old laptop in front of you, would it be difficult to use? Yeah. I mean, they're doing registration checks. They're the first to tell us that this thing is getting slow. I just can't do it. When we have issues where dispatcher has to do it, it's like going backwards. So difficult. And then we just went to e-ticketing, electronic ticketing for the officers. That's all done on the computer in the cars.
You mentioned registration. I'm just curious. We used to put a little sticker on our license plate. They did away with that. Then we put a thing in our windshield. They did away with that. So how do you know if a car is registered or not? You have to pull them over?
They actually just run the plate. Yeah, the officers will sit down there on Litchfield Turnpike and just run plates.
As cars go by?
As cars go by. Oh. There's really no other way to know it. And as we go on to the next computers that are needed, the 2 computers that are in the dispatch center, these are the 2 oldest computers that we have. And it indicates that it's the 2 dispatch internet computers. These computers don't have anything to do with CAD, running the computerized dispatch for dispatch itself. This is dispatching the officers keeping track of where the officers are and everything. This is specifically what they use it for, is for 411 calls, get information. They use it for the weather bug. They would use it to verify insurance. When an officer calls in and he wants to verify insurance, they go right into the website of the insurance companies to verify whether it's good or not. Obviously, news coverage, and one of the two most important things, and just came into light just recently, is our Everbridge system runs off the internet, as well as our UI website. During storms and everything like that. And there's numerous other things that they use it for, but bringing those, we really need to bring those up. Like I said, those are the two most oldest computers in the building. And that's it for computers. Pretty straightforward. Any questions?
I actually do have a question. Do you have a dedicated IT person in the police department? It never occurred to me to ask that before, but who does your IT for you?
Right now, we're looking to build that up. We did have an IT person. He did leave. He left for another department. He had 25 years in, and he left. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Tony. We're trying to put together a program.
The police department currently is moving towards the same model that we have in town, which is they have a local person on staff, a sergeant, who can handle all of the basics calls, as Karen and I do in finance, and know when to call a consultant to help with more difficult problems.
So you're triage, and then when you bring the surgeon in.
Right. So first thing you check is to make sure the mouse is plugged in, that sort of thing.
Turn it on, turn it off.
Turn it on, turn it off.
Yeah, that's how I do IT.
Basic password resets and stuff like that. We can do all that stuff. And then when you need a consultant, we bring them in, and they're on the same model, using the same consultant that we use, and we've identified a number of efficiencies so far.
Oh yes, it's working very well.
It's working very well.
But just to add to that, Tony, is that we had chief's training today, and that was one of the main questions that came up during recess was, what's everybody doing with IT? Do you have an IT person? How are you dealing with that? And I was thrown into it just a couple months ago when our IT person, and how important it is to have somebody. And I think that what the boards have to realize in the very, very near future, we're going to be budgeting for. It's going to be hopefully we'll be able to work it out, but it's something that all the departments, all the towns around here, I know, Orange, Branford, these are the chiefs that I was talking to today, that it's going to be a cost that we're going to have to take on.
It's an opportunity for a consortium too.
Because the individual that left, he was making dispatcher's pay, he goes to somewhere else, he's making twice as much as he's making as a dispatcher, had the 25 years in, and we can't meet that.
Yeah.
So we're trying. Everybody's trying to. So they're taking officers. But the question this morning was that you take an officer off the road, then you're depleting your police service. He's not there to do computer work. He's there to uphold the law. So there's all these issues.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
The more sophisticated we get, the more glitches we're going to have. So
yes.
You don't want this stuff falling apart on you. So, thank you.
Repeater relocation, it's in the works. This is not a new project. Right now, we currently had, last year we currently had $60,000 associated with it. In last year's budget, I borrowed $24,991. It looks like there's a possibility we might need another $20,000. The only reason it hasn't gone forward from this point is that we had a big holdup with the road going up to the AT&T tower, where the new location is off of Litchfield Turnpike, and with the costs associated with finishing the project up.
So the Shepherd property. But this has been 3 years.
Yeah, this is 3 years. It's just that the road held up until just recently, because it wasn't made to spec. And we basically put it on hold. What's been done? The equipment and everything is up on the towers. The AT&T permits have all been paid for. And then we're moving along right now. We have a committee that's moving along.
Right.
We're looking into, we have to put a generator up there, we have to put a slab, we have to put a building, we have to get the move of all the equipment from the 125 Bradley Road to it's 1998 Litchfield Turnpike, just up behind the farm. But that's not a new project. It's just a slight increase to what the cost would be. Now, the fourth area that we're going into is radio upgrade. I mean, Tony, jump in any time, but I'm saying I'm showing you a need for the police department, a capital outlay, which is portable radios, a GPS computer, as well as mobile radios. Our present radio system that was bought in 2003 is outdated. It was outdated when the portables were bought at that time. But for cost savings, we bought what we have right now are the HD 1000s. Can we go a little longer without starting to replace these? I think we can. But in showing you a responsible budget, I have to show you that this is a need that's going to be needed down the road, and that we do presently have a radio committee that this may be part of.
And the radio
in replacing the radio system.
Of both police and fire.
That committee will be formed next week at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Correct.
Chiefs of fire, police, public works will be represented. Joe Heller is going to be the chairman. And what else? I think that's pretty much it.
Any questions on that? And then we go into
translate it so that we can understand what this is all about.
We had when the committee
both
was
of the
being
people
formed.
I talked to here are very confused about radios and communications. We can't quite.
It's going to be designed so you can understand.
Put it in layman's terms.
And I'm learning right alongside you.
Very good.
Math, 2 cans and a string.
But a lot of the capital projects, again, like I said, it's just being me being responsible to you to let you know that there is a need that we can, within the next several years, it's going to be addressed either by myself or where it's got to be done. Now the building upgrade, it's nothing new to these boards regarding the building upgrade, but just for those who may have not been in when we started, 2007, I started a request with a space needs assessment. We got that completed, and at the completion of that, we saw that there was some needs. Some of them liability needs, they're all across the board as far as the police department goes. I think you saw that there was a need for some major upgrades. After that completion of that in 2008, I requested both a floor plan and a cost estimate be conducted, those are in completion. The capital budget, and in the past, up until last year, the budget request was for $3.5 million. Here it is a significant increase of that, but this is more of a realistic request based on the information that I got from the cost estimate, right straight from the cost estimate. And what I've done tonight is that I've brought Mr. Humes, who has done all 3 of the projects for us. They're all in completion, and hopefully he's open for questions, but he can give you like an overview of where we're at right now, some of the concerns that we might have, both directly and indirectly, some of the things that we have to take care of, and then note the fact that we do have a $500,000 grant that we were given by the state that needs to be spent in a timely fashion, or otherwise I can foresee the state will take it back. Those are some of the kind of issues that I just wanted to bring up. Does anybody have any questions of me where the department is with this right now?
I think at some point it'd be appropriate to have these 2 boards take a tour of the police facility.
Oh, absolutely.
So they see how it looks like.
How many square feet do you occupy over there?
Right now, it's about just less than 10, and we were recommended for, I believe, 19,000. And that's after we cut it back, after we tried to prioritize things that were going to be moved, that being the Sallyport area, where we thought that we were going to have some construction. This project has absolutely no new construction associated with it. The issue is that there's some major renovations to the existing building that we want to move into, or portion of the building that we want to move into. Associated costs that it appears now that the police department has to take on if we want to move into it, but things that have to be done whether we move into it or not. And I think one of the other issues was tonight was to bring to the Board of Selectmen the issue of the space that was requested also. Right?
Right.
I mean, with that said, I'd like to bring Mr. Humes forward, and he can, like I said, he can just give us, or give you an oversight of where we're at, what was done, and where we hope to go from there.
Good evening. Some of you are familiar faces, some of you aren't. I'm Brian Humes from Jakunski Humes Architects. We're out of Berlin, Connecticut. And as Deputy Chief had mentioned, we've been working on this project with the police department in various stages since 2008. So for us, it's not a new project, and I'm sure for you, it's not a new project. What I put up on the easel is the work that I've done with police facilities throughout Connecticut. I've been working with police facilities and police facility design for over 25 years now. But the map that I put up is just the last 15 years. So there's been a lot of activity, not just in Woodbridge, with trying to improve police facilities and their conditions, but this has been a statewide effort for a lot of departments. And we've been working with all of those departments that you see there. We're also working throughout Massachusetts to really address what the specific needs of a department are and how we can improve those needs. And when we look on how we are to improve it, we have to look on different levels. One of the levels is just the facility itself. Is the facility sufficient enough to support the needs of the department? When we look at the facility, we look at energy conservation, we look at the mechanical systems, we look at electrical systems, integration of technology, and how your building is performing under those conditions. We also have to look at safety. With these facilities, safety for me is not a negotiable item, because we have police officers who are looking to do their best under extreme conditions at times. We have to be very concerned about the population that they're dealing with and bringing prisoners into the facility, how they're handled. Is it a safe condition? Is it an unsafe condition? But we also have to respect the public's need for information too. When the public comes to the police department, is the public put in a safe condition? So we have to look at three occupants of the building, the public, the police staff, and prisoners, and we have to make sure that safety is provided for all three occupants. And lastly, we have to look on what's the best solution for meeting the needs. Is it an addition? Is it renovation? Is it expansion? When we did the space needs assessment, we completed our space needs assessment in June of 2009. This was presented and understood to be the needs of the department going forward. And in 2009, I just opened up to page 15, and yes, we do have an IT coordinator and space for an IT coordinator. So back in 2009, we were even considering, what are the future needs? Needs are derived in a number of ways. Needs are trying to provide conditions that don't exist currently, trying to look to future expansion, and how is the building and how are the spaces that you currently have accommodating future growth, or are the conditions not safe in their present form? I did say in 2009, and I'll repeat it again, that the need for additional space in the police department is not due to an explosion of staffing levels. It's not due because the police department is looking to expand its staffing levels. We've projected a 20-year growth potential for the Woodbridge Police Department, and we've only projected the staffing needs for sworn officers to get to 30. They're in the high 20s, 26 now. So over 20-year growth, we're only seeing a need for 4 more officers over 20 years. So what we're talking about with needs here is not driven by the need to occupy with more people. We're looking to address needs to really now look at facility and department current needs and to make conditions safer. There are a number of liabilities that I've seen and witnessed over at the police department. That's liabilities due to building code issues or liabilities due to safety issues. There are conditions over there that have existed since they have moved into the facility when they first occupied in the 70s, that center building. There was some renovations done in the 80s to the facility. And the last renovation was in 91, 92 when they renovated the dispatch center. And it was just dispatch related only. So the last renovation they had to any staff areas other than dispatch was 30 years ago. We've taken a look at the main floor of the facility, and to orient you, this area is a portion of the center building. These 2 rooms are being used right now as gymnasium, fitness center. And so to orient you, these are the fitness rooms at the current center building. The police department is occupying from here down to this location, right about here now in the police department. There's the rest of the center building that you're not seeing on this plan, just so you know that this isn't the entire building, it's just a portion of the building. And what we've looked to do to satisfy the current and future needs of the police department is utilize existing space that's available in the center building. We've designed this renovation to be a 2-phased renovation. Phase 1 would be renovate space in the center building on the main floor, and there is small area of renovation on the lower floor of the center building. The rooms here in the basement for phase 1. And renovating phase 1 in the brown areas are administrative areas, dispatch center, and records. So these are staff positions for the police department. And the area in the green are public spaces. What we'd like to propose for the center building is to make the front entrance of the center building handicapped accessible with a handicapped access ramp coming from the parking lot, and to identify the center building's main entrance now as the entrance to the police department. It's important that you have a building that's identifiable, not just for you, the citizens, but for people passing through town. Where is the police department? The entrance right now is very hard to identify. It's back, it's hidden, it's not well lit or well signed. But people passing through town, a lot of times in the middle of the night, are just looking for the police department. If they need assistance, providing this presence along Meeting House Lane as a main entrance for the public would identify this main entrance more to the public. So we would provide a public lobby, and the other space would be a training room. This training room would be utilized by the police department for their needs and training, but it's also off the public lobby. It can be used by public coming in for police commission meetings, citizen police academies. It can be used by other groups in the center building. If they have the need to use that classroom, it's a classroom space. This addresses one of the safety issues that I currently see as an example in your existing building. If the police department wants to hold any class where the public is invited, they come through the front door, but the public has to travel the entire length of the corridor to get to the end of the corridor where this is their classroom. It's directly across from the detention area. At different times of day, public is traveling down that corridor, and when police department staff may be escorting prisoners around that same corridor. That's the type of thing, when I talk about liabilities in your existing building, that we're trying to remedy with a new design, a proper design. So this phase one could all be constructed and renovated while the police are still occupying it and performing their duties in their existing space. Once phase one is completed, then we can look to phase two, because now we have a dispatch center that's relocated to new conditions with new radio equipment. We have administrative areas for chief and the deputy chief that are now up in phase one. We have records that's been relocated, and all the public interaction with this portion of the building that's been relocated. So we've freed up space now on phase two, so we can perform this phase two renovation down the road.
So, I'm trying to orient myself. So, the tan, I guess, on the right, under where you have phase one written, is currently where your fingers, that's currently where the fitness center is?
The fitness center.
And then that's going to be down the hallway. So is the front entrance going to be the main door at the front with the steps?
Mm-hmm.
Parking, currently where the parking is?
Mm-hmm.
And then down that hallway coming down toward the...
You're
So that's-
oriented more this way?
Well, see, because we're right there. You see where we are?
This is Meeting House Lane.
We're the town hall.
Right, so we're down the
Town
bottom
hall's down
left.
here.
Yeah.
So now it makes more sense.
So currently we're under phase two. That's currently where this police station is now.
Correct.
And then to the then up is that the gymnasium, and or are they currently in that?
Currently, they're using this as a training classroom.
Okay. And then right on top is
Boy Scout. Boy Scout.
Boy Scout. Oh, the Boy Scout room, or the scouting room. Okay, I got you.
And that's as far as the renovations would.
And then where it says not in contract scope, that's the gymnasium. That's the
an auditorium.
The auditorium and the stage in the gym.
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking to take the whole front of the center building.
It's not the whole front.
Not the whole front, just to the door.
It's
Human
a path.
services.
So if you're looking at the front of the center building, it's from the front door down toward the existing.
Oh, to the right. So you go into,
Restaurant.
so the PD's to the right, and then to the left is what's there, and Woodbridge Child Care, and all that other stuff is still intact on the left.
Correct, all open to the public, whereas if you take a right, you'll be secure doors going into the police department.
I got you, okay.
That's an interior courtyard, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
This is an interior courtyard.
Right, so there's a whole other side of the building.
Right, yeah,
So-
yeah, okay.
So if public want to come into this public lobby, the public has access to this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There would be some restriction here for non-business hours, but during normal business hours, public could utilize this front door and then continue on to the other functions that are in the center building.
Okay.
But this would have a presence right off the dispatch center 24/7.
You might want to redo that map, Brian, to show it like this.
Turn it up, turn it upside down.
Only because we're sitting here.
No.
If we were sitting somewhere else, we would turn it up.
The next thing we did after we reviewed the plan and that it met the needs of this space needs assessment, satisfied the direction that the police department wanted to go in. It doesn't require any new addition at all. It's utilizing existing space. We forwarded our plans to a cost estimator in Boston. We've utilized KV Associates now for the last 15 years, exclusively for our police facility work. They have a database now of tracking our police facility designs, tracking our bid results against their cost estimates, and they have a very good database on what police facilities are costing in this region. The cost estimate was done and prepared, and it was the basis of the project cost estimate that I put together, and it is The cost estimate is this document, which is KV Associates' work out of Boston. This is a detailed breakdown of all of the associated costs with the project. That gets into detail, but what is the summary sheet are 3 buckets of money. It's a hard cost. The hard cost is the construction and site work that came from the construction cost estimate. It's associated soft costs, which are also project costs that have to be anticipated for every project. And then we add a project contingency for unknowns. Those 3 buckets of money make up your project totals for phase 1 and phase 2. Now for phase 1, I've indicated that there's a state of Connecticut steep grant of $500,000 against phase 1 costs. And that steep grant was awarded by the state for the specific purposes of this project. A very similar occurrence in Monroe, where we're doing renovations now to the Monroe Police Department. They had a similar project, similar steep grant, similar amount, $500,000. And the state approached Monroe saying, we want the grant back. The state is doing this because if you're holding your grants too long, they are looking to get the grants back to budget, to balance the budget in Hartford. Monroe was serious about wanting to spend the money, and they awarded the project, and we're now under construction in Monroe for the Monroe Police Department. I don't want to bring that up as a threat. I don't want to bring it up as something that you're under the gun, but it is something that is occurring and you have to be aware of. These grants that they're giving out and awarding don't have an endless, no expiration date on them.
How long have we had this?
Just under a year.
Tony's been in contact with...
I've been in contact with OPM, and that's currently not an issue.
Okay.
But what we do need to do at some point is have a plan for those funds, those particular funds. They're not concerned about the rest of the project. They're just concerned about the $500,000. So whether you have a plan for just $500,000 or something greater than that, that's what the concern is.
I want to just stay on phase 1 for a minute, because the costs of phase 1 has costs associated with it that are not particularly associated with the police department's need for space, but they are more pertaining to the condition of the existing center building. What we're trying to do in phase 1, they say, was renovate existing space, but when we started looking at that existing space, the condition of that building and some of the things that the project now has to take on to make the space suitable for the police department really goes beyond the scope of just normal renovations. We are looking to put gas service into the building. We're looking to make this building more energy efficient. We're looking to make this building, exterior windows on this building, more efficient. And these are some of the things that are going to benefit the building in total, as well as the police department space. Just because we want to renovate this area, we want to replace these deteriorated, aging windows. So we're going to do it across the entire front of the building. You're not going to just renovate windows on the right half and leave the left half.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like Vermont, just paint the front of the building.
We are looking to do some things that kind of go beyond the scope of what you're seeing on this plan. I did have an opportunity to sit down with Joe. He was going to try to stay, but he had to leave. And I went through the cost estimate with Joe in some detail about, Joe, can we not do some of these things? And he says, I don't see anything on your list that I would take off. Mm-hmm. Well, that is impacting the overall cost of the renovations. while it is impacting the overall costs, we are able to do phase one for $135 a square foot. If you're looking at costs of new construction in police facilities in Connecticut right now, you're over $300 a square foot.
That's amazing.
So $135 a square foot with doing some infrastructure improvements. It needs new electrical in there. It needs new lighting. It needs new HVAC systems. It needs new insulation. It needs new windows. There's water infiltration in the basement. We have to address these things. And
So you're also considering possibly asbestos abatement?
Yes.
You've gotten that far into that you know that that's going to be, you start tearing walls down and that's an old building. You take it, is that included in?
If you look on the bottom of my list, there's additional anticipated expenses. And one of the additional anticipated expenses is hazardous materials identification and abatement. We have not been authorized to do that identification work, but that's something that should be addressed. That's not within our scope and not within our contract.
So
but
that
it is something
that could be a significant cost.
It could be. There are older materials in that center building. There have been some renovations in the past, though, that have addressed some of it. But I don't have good information for you as to what's the scope.
So these numbers that we have here are the $5,208,496. So that's working within the structure.
Yes.
Correct. So we're not building outside of the footprint.
Not at all.
And
no new construction.
But it would also include, as you said, you can't just fix the windows on half the building going around. So you go around the building and fix those things as you go. So.
We went as far as doing the entire front and then this side for new windows. We haven't included windows then along the upper area. So we've addressed the entire front of the building, addressed this side of the building.
So that would be an additional cost we need to figure as well.
You want to continue
part of this, I guess, project, right?
Well, if we wanted to, yeah.
Because I understand why you're doing it. It's just that $5,208,000 plus possible abatement plus insulating and windows around the entire rest of the building would all have to come in under one project, right? We're not wouldn't bid this out and then bid out fixing the rest of the stuff as part of that project. Is that, I don't know how that would work.
That hasn't been determined then. We haven't gotten, this is just a police study.
Right, okay.
So I mean, I think what you're getting at, Tom, is that there's actually a benefit of this project to the whole building. It's increasing the useful life of the entire building.
There is a benefit. It's just there's also significant additional costs that
could occur.
That will occur. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we're going to do the rest of the building, and we're going to, and at least looking at the, what it might cost to do the abatement, because I'm sure there's going to be some environmental
issues.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, the building being as old as it is, you start to tear out walls, you're probably going to find, I guess, even down to the basement, you're going to find those types of
and along those lines, talking with Joe, he's spending an awful lot of money to heat that building in the winter. Mm-hmm. Heat right now, it's an oil. Yep. It's an oil building, and the heat that's being put into that building is really going right out through the windows and the roof. There's really very little insulation at all in that attic area.
Oh, don't disagree at all.
So, yes, what we're looking to do in phase one gives the police department space. We are trying to improve the building, but there's more of the building that you're not seeing.
Oh yeah, no, I was a little confused. I wrote all that in now, so I got it wrong. But I understand.
So I think one thing that would be helpful is to really understand what are you doing that benefits the infrastructure of the entire building. So are you replacing all of the heating? Are you upgrading all of the electrical? So that we have a better sense of really what we're getting.
And we can define that.
I think what you need is a narrative with this report to put in writing, exactly what you've been saying here tonight, so that somebody can pick it up and read it and say, okay, here's what's happening?
The $135 a square foot, I've taken that off of the first page of the KV Associates cost estimate. So if you're looking for that number, it's the grayed out column. And it also shows you cost for phase 2 at $186 a square foot. That would take care of renovating the remaining portion. So we feel, while it is a lot of money, looking at any other options for new construction, you're less than half of what new construction.
Absolutely. New construction, new building, clean site, you're telling me is $300 a square foot?
Yes, in excess of 300.
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
The $300 a square foot is just your hard cost number. When you add the soft costs and contingencies onto a new construction, you're over $400 a square foot.
Thank you.
Does this get you all the way to the, was it 19.7 or whatever, the square footage? You said it's 10,000 square feet now?
Yeah,
it
it satisfies, this isn't 19.7, but we've looked at other ways of achieving the 19.7. In the 19.7, there was a mechanics facility. And since 2009, there was a decision to move that to the Public Works garage. Right. So some of the things, there was a firearms training range in the 19.7, which we've looked to do something else with. It's not in this project.
Okay, I guess what I'm getting at, if the police department has been in its space now since the 1970s, it's knocking on 40 years, is there any suggestion that with this renovation there might be another 40 years of a happy marriage between the police department and that space?
At least 20. We say yes. The reason we say yes is we've done what I came back to before is you're not showing a large staffing increase. So if you can satisfy the needs of the department at 26 officers, we've built in extra lockers to get to 30 officers. Now you're just talking about regular maintenance and upkeep. If you maintain the building and you have regular upkeep, this building should last well in excess of your 40 years without the need for any additions or expansions.
And that's on the building, but the life of your equipment. The mechanical equipment is going to be 18 to 22 years.
That's the maintenance and upkeep portion of it. You're going to have durations of things you'll need to replace, but will you need to expand square footage is where the building would satisfy you well into the future.
So what's the square footage proposed in this plan?
It is
almost 20,000 square feet.
No, for phase 1, I have 6,525 on the main level and 3,373 square feet in the basement.
What was the top? 6,500 and what?
6,525. The basement has 3,373. There's about 10,000 there. The phase 2 gross square footage is 11,436.
21,000.
So we're at the. We've been able to find, with this solution, almost the 19th.
Just for comparison, does anybody know how big this building is? Does anybody know how big this building is?
Town hall, how many square feet?
No?
I don't know.
Well, how about the fire department? It's about 20,000 square feet.
One fireworks right here on this person. Thank you, I don't.
So you're talking similar, except this is 2 levels.
So the police department presently occupies how many square feet?
11. It's the phase 2. It's 11. 10. It's less because we don't have the Boy Scout room's not included, so it's 10,200. They currently have 10,200 that they're utilizing today.
The Boy Scout room is a meeting room, right?
Correct.
A former classroom, correct?
Yes.
Our classroom actually is a former classroom too.
Right.
That was acquired back in the early 90s where they renovated that.
Right.
That's where the sprinkler system stops. We don't have a sprinkler system in the police department.
Is that right? Wow.
Does not exist in the police department, other than there. It came out and stopped right at the end of the hallway, well, that far end of the hallway. It's in the Boy Scout room, it's in our training room.
Right.
But as you go down the hallway, there's no fire suppression.
So what I would...
It's in the rest of the room.
Do you have more questions? Does anyone have more questions?
But the proposal, I just have one, and the proposal was to do this over, through 14 and 15 over a next 2-year period.
Well, that's the way it was proposed in 2 phases. We had actually looked at, even if we started the first phase, saying a year and a half, and it goes off.
So it can't be done in phases, I guess that's the bottom line.
Correct.
So I think, for simplification's sake here, if you could provide us with a narrative, and then we could go over to the current police station, review that, and then to propose additional areas so everybody sees what we're talking about, has a better feeling for it. You just look around the room, most people have not been to the police station here.
I'm happy to say.
I hope, that's for good reason. It might be helpful, So,
check out one of those cells.
yeah.
Don't have too many
choices. So
Well,
what we're
apropos
building.
of your point, though, I want to tell, we've lived in town 25 years. For the first 5 years we lived here, I didn't know where the police station was.
Yeah. It's very poorly.
Downstairs in this building, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
I had no
Just as
idea.
well you didn't see it.
I mean, just to make a comment on what Mr. Humes had mentioned before about the safety of the building. As he was arriving at the PD tonight to go over this with me, we were actually releasing a convicted felon out the door. So he's coming in the front door, and we're releasing him out the front door. So it kind of puts everything in perspective as far as safety goes and everything, as far as how the department is set up and the space and the needs that we have.
Nothing's ever happened though, right?
I'm sorry?
Nothing's ever actually happened.
No.
Just checking.
Oh, we've had prisoners get loose.
We've had what?
We've had prisoners get loose.
Get loose?
Get loose.
So do you want to give us a time frame when that can be done, and we can take another look at this?
The narrative?
Yeah.
I could develop that in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, so after the first of the year, we can maybe arrange for
right, sure.
a visit and a slash read through the narrative. Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be helpful to carry this around with us and show us, here's what we're talking about, this space. So what's being, is there anything being, like, the Boy Scouts are being displaced, obviously, right? Is there a plan for whatever else is being displaced?
The fitness center, as you know, is being moving to the
Old firehouse.
old firehouse.
This has a domino effect here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's something to talk about.
Is EMS in this building now?
Yes.
Somewhere as part of, where are they?
The basement.
In the basement.
In the basement, but they're underneath the weight
Are they gonna move, or
You're in the center.
in the center.
Yeah.
The weight-
they're gonna move
Here,
as part of this?
Are they affected by this, the EMS?
EMS? No.
I don't think so.
EMS?
They're not.
They'll just stay.
Well, no, we
where
weren't
they are?
using it downstairs. But it would be renovated. It would have to be renovated. That's part of what Mr. Humes was indicating as far as.
So we're bringing gas to the building. There's going to be energy savings here, substantial energy savings.
Yeah.
Hopefully with new windows and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's gas right now that's to the building, but it's not in the building.
No.
So this
There will
would,
It will be, yeah, it's in process.
so it would be conversion of boilers, and that would benefit the entire building.
Correct.
So realistically, we're talking about doing this a year from now, a little over a year from now to start?
We've said that it's going to take 6 months to prepare the documents to put them out on the street for bidding. It would take another 1 to 2 months to bid and review the bids. So from when you say go, there's about 8 months that it's going to be nothing's happening in the building.
Right. And I'm asking that question because it says on your project cost estimate page that costs are proposed beginning April 2013.
Yes.
I think
so
one other thing we'll review is how this fits in with other projects.
Correct.
So we'll be making a determination when it starts.
Right.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just saying that the cost of the project is likely more than this because it's not starting.
They're always going to
April
tell you that.
2013,
Yeah.
right.
But it's going to be out to bid, we'll
Sure.
find out. The
Well, that's
marketplace
true.
will tell
You're
us.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Is there a building committee related to this, or is this just gonna go?
There is not a building committee yet.
Okay.
There could be. We could do that.
I don't
Or we
know.
could use the police commission or
Yeah.
the board of selectmen or whatever, however we want to do it.
We have escalated the costs for phase 2, just to anticipate that that's gonna be probably a year and a half after phase 1 gets initiated. So there's some escalation costs that are built into the cost estimate for phase 2.
Okay, any other questions? I'm sure we'll hear more about this. Yeah, let's schedule something in January for.
Very good.
Yeah, this is a really solid
Thank you,
plan.
Greg.
Yeah, very
Good
solid.
job.
Thank you very much.
Very helpful.
Okay, finally, we have the Country Club of Woodbridge. There's not much in the book, because we have to really,
Yeah, I'm not sure what else to have for. I'll see if
You're outside here.
oh,
Yep.